The depth gauge needle trembled past 200 meters. The steel hull groaned. It sounded like a dying animal. A rivet popped somewhere in the stern, sounding like a gunshot in the terrifying silence of the control room. Water sprayed across the deck plates, cold and high pressure, cutting the stagnant air like a knife. The men froze. They looked at the captain. He stood perfectly still under the red emergency lighting. His face was a mask of grease and exhaustion, framed by a thick white beard that had grown wild over weeks at sea. He did not look at the leak. He looked at the depth gauge. The boat was sinking uncontrolled. They were falling into the abyss. If you enjoy uncovering the darkest, most intense survival stories from history, please take a moment to subscribe. We bring the past to life, one mission at a time. It was November 1941, the Strait of Gibraltar, the bottleneck of the Mediterranean. It was the most heavily guarded stretch of water on Earth, a trap set by the British Royal Navy to catch the German grey wolves. To pass through was suicide. To stay out was failure. Captain Heinrich Lehmann-Willenbrock, the old man, had decided to run the gauntlet. He was 30 years old, which made him ancient in the U-boat service. He was known for his calm in the face of catastrophe. But this was different. They had been spotted by a plane. Then the destroyers came. Now U-96 was plummeting toward the ocean floor, far beyond its design limits. The air inside the steel tube was thick and foul. It smelled of diesel oil, unwashed bodies, and moldy bread. But now, a new smell was rising, the sharp metallic tang of fear. The boat shuddered violently as it hit the seabed. The impact threw men off their feet. Glass shattered in the dials. Then silence, absolute crushing silence. They were sitting on the bottom of the ocean, 280 meters down. The shipyard specifications said the hull would crush at 150. They were alive, but for how long? "Report damage," the captain whispered. His voice was calm, almost bored. The chief engineer, his face pale and sweating, crawled out from the aft compartment. He looked shaken. "Batteries are taking water, Herr Cologne," the chief whispered. "Chlorine gas?" "Not yet, but if the level rises, fix it. We can't stop the intake. The pressure outside is—" "Fix it, Chief, or we all sleep here forever." The captain turned back to the depth gauge. It was pegged at the maximum. They were off the map. In his private war diary, written days before this dive, the captain had noted the mood of the crew. "The men are tired. Their faces are gray like the sea. We are hunting, but we feel like the hunted. There is no glory here, only the damp and the weight. I look at the boys in the torpedo room. Some are only 19. They trust me to bring them up. I do not know if I can." The silence returned, heavier this time. Outside the hull, the ocean was waiting to crush them. Inside, the temperature was dropping rapidly. Condensation dripped from the pipes, cold and relentless. It felt like the inside of a tomb. Suddenly, a sound tore through the water. Ping. The British ASDIC sonar. It was searching. Ping. It was faint, but unmistakable. The destroyers were still up there. They were circling like vultures, waiting for a sound, an oil slick, anything that would betray the submarine's grave. "Rig for silent running," the captain signaled with his hand. The crew moved in slow motion. They took off their shoes. They wrapped tools in rags. No one spoke. Even a dropped wrench could be heard by the hydrophones above. The men lay in their bunks or sat on the floor, conserving oxygen. The air scrubbers were off to save power. The carbon dioxide levels began to climb. Breathing became work. Each inhale was shallow and unfulfilling. A headache started behind the eyes of every man on board. It was the CO2 poisoning. It made them lethargic. It made them want to sleep. And sleep was death. "Johann," the captain whispered to the bosun. "Yes, Herr Callan. Keep them awake. Check the compartments. No sleeping." "Jawohl." Time lost its meaning. Was it day or night up there? It didn't matter. Down here, it was eternal night. The hull groaned again, a high-pitched screech of metal compressing. The pressure was trying to fold the U-boat like a tin can. The chief engineer returned. He looked like a ghost. His hands were bleeding. "The pumps," he gasped. "The pumps are broken. We can't blow the ballast tanks. We are too heavy." "Manual override?" "Jammed. The pressure has warped the linkage." "Then we unjam it." "It's impossible, Herr Callan. It's solid steel bent like wire." "There is no impossible, Chief. Get the crowbars, get the sledgehammers, get every man who can stand." This was the moment the rules broke. The manual said to conserve energy. The manual said to wait. The captain knew waiting meant death. They had to fight the ship itself. The captain grabbed a heavy wrench. He moved to the control valves. The air was so thick now that a match wouldn't strike. They were suffocating. "Listen to me!" his voice rasped, cutting through the lethargy. "We are not dying in this hole. We are going home. Do you hear me? We are going home. Now work!" The men looked at him. They saw the fire in his eyes. The exhaustion vanished, replaced by desperation. They attacked the machinery. It was a brutal physical battle against cold steel. Men stripped to their waists, sweating despite the freezing temperature. They hammered at the seized valves. They hauled chains. They manually pumped the bilge, putting their backs into levers that refused to move. Muscles tore. Knuckles broke. They gasped for air that wasn't there. He wrote in his log later, "I saw men crying as they worked, not from fear, but from the sheer effort. They were turning into animals, fighting for one last breath of sky." For 3 hours, they fought the ship. The water level in the bilge receded, inch by agonizing inch. The valve groaned, then gave a quarter turn. "She's moving," someone shouted. "Quiet," the captain hissed, but he smiled, a grim, tight smile. "Blow ballast," he ordered. "Forward tanks only. Let's see if she has any life left." The compressed air hissed into the tanks. It was a violent, angry sound. The boat shuddered. For a long moment, nothing happened. The mud of the sea floor held them fast. The suction was too strong. Then a lurch. The bow lifted. The deck tilted up. "She's free! Blow all tanks! Hard rise!" The U-boat shot upward. It was a rocket now. They were ascending too fast. The pressure drop would be immense. Nitrogen bubbles would form in their blood. But it was better than the crushing dark. The depth gauge needle spun. 200 meters. 150. 100. "Prepare to surface! Surface! Surface!" The captain climbed the ladder to the conning tower. He spun the wheel to undog the hatch. The pressure equalized with a roar that popped their ears. He threw the hatch open. Night. Fresh, cold, salty air poured into the boat. It tasted like champagne. It tasted like life. The captain pulled himself onto the bridge. He scanned the horizon with his binoculars. The sea was rough. Whitecaps breaking over the bow. The sky was black. And there, less than a mile away, was the shadow of a British destroyer. Its stern light was fading into the mist. It was sailing away. They had surfaced right behind the hunter. "Engines ahead full," the captain said. "Get us out of here." The diesels coughed, then roared to life. White smoke billowed. The U-boat cut through the waves, a scarred, battered shark returning to the hunt. The men on the bridge breathed deeply, filling their starved lungs. They looked at the stars. They looked at the captain. He stood gripping the rail, looking back at the invisible spot where they had almost died. He lit a cigarette. His hands were steady. By morning, they were in the open Atlantic. They had survived a depth that should have killed them. They had repaired a ship that was wrecked. They had escaped a trap that had no exit. According to the official logs of the Kriegsmarine, U-96 returned to base with heavy damage. The crew was granted leave, but the psychological scars never healed. In a letter to his wife, one of the machinists wrote, "I am walking on the streets of La Rochelle. I am drinking wine. I am seeing the sun. But part of me is still down there. Part of me is still waiting for the water to come in. I don't think I ever really surfaced." The Battle of the Atlantic was the longest continuous military campaign in World War II. 30,000 German U-boat sailors died. That is a casualty rate of 75%. It was the deadliest branch of service in any army, on any side. Most crews didn't get a miracle. They didn't get a captain who refused to die. They just vanished into the dark, leaving only an oil slick and a brief note in a logbook. If you want to hear more forgotten stories of the men who lived through the impossible, make sure to subscribe. This channel exists to bring their voices back from the deep. War makes legends out of ordinary men. It pushes them past the breaking point, past the rules of physics and endurance. But the ocean keeps the score. And in the end, the ocean always wins. U-96 was just a temporary exception.